It was supposed to be just another Monday morning in the heart of downtown Atlanta, where the glass towers scraped the clouds and suits shuffled in like pieces on a giant corporate chessboard. The boardroom on the 47th floor of Selmore and Kent Industries buzzed with nervous energy. Executives sat around the long, polished table, their laptops open, coffee steaming, and smiles tight. Everyone was waiting for the same thing, or more accurately, the same someone. Then came the door creak. A young black man, maybe early 30s, sharp in a tailored navy blue suit and calm as a quiet storm, stepped inside. He carried no briefcase, just a soft leather folder tucked under one arm. His name, Jordan Miles. But no one in that room knew that name yet. Not really. Almost as soon as he walked in, the tension thickened like smoke. Not because of what he said. He hadn't said a word yet, but because of who he was. Or rather, what some of them assumed he wasn't. Across the room, near the head of the table, sat manager Brent Halley, 53, crisp gray suit, thin-rimmed glasses, polished voice like a late-night news anchor. But beneath the surface there was an edge to him, something colder, something sharper, the kind of man who measured people before they even opened their mouths, and not always by what mattered. Brent didn't even glance up when Jordan entered, just waved his hand vaguely and said, "Maintenance is next door. This meeting's private." You could have heard a pin drop. A few of the executives shifted uncomfortably. One woman raised her brow, another opened her mouth but hesitated. Jordan stood still, eyes calm, smile faint. "I think I'm in the right room," he said, voice smooth, not a hint of heat. Brent scoffed. "Unless you're here to refill the coffee, I doubt it." The words hit harder than a slap. No one laughed, but the silence that followed felt complicit. Jordan didn't flinch. He simply walked to the head of the table and placed his folder down in front of the empty seat at the top, the one reserved for, well, no one knew. That was part of the reason tension hung like fog. Today was the day the company was meeting their new CEO. Brent blinked. "I said that seat's reserved." "I know," Jordan said, and opened the folder. Inside was a sleek tablet, and on the screen was a simple presentation titled, "Selmore and Kent, a new future begins today." That's when a few people started to realize. The woman beside Brent whispered something under her breath. A younger exec across the table blinked twice, then sat straighter in his seat. "And Brent?" He leaned forward, lips twitching with confusion. Jordan looked up, and for the first time his tone shifted. Still cool, still calm, but carrying something undeniable. Authority. "I'm Jordan Miles," he said, "and starting today, I'm your new CEO." It was like flipping a switch. Brent paled. Someone coughed. A phone buzzed and was immediately silenced. For a few long seconds, the only thing moving was the slow blink of disbelief across Brent's face. Jordan didn't wait for an apology, didn't need one. Instead, he turned to the screen behind him and tapped the tablet. The presentation sprang to life. Charts, plans, vision statements. But the real show was over. Or maybe it was just beginning. And as that story brewed in one part of the city, across town, on a packed MARTA train crawling its way through the early morning rush, a very different moment was unfolding. Darius Brown was 17. High school senior, backpack slung across his lap, earbuds in, hoodie up. He wasn't paying much attention to the world around him, until he saw her. A white woman, probably late 20s, hand on her swollen belly, standing with one hand braced on the metal rail. No one moved. Eyes stayed down. Phones stayed up. But Darius didn't hesitate. He stood and nodded to the seat. "Ma'am," he said, voice quiet. She looked surprised, grateful, and very tired. "Thank you." She sat down slowly, resting both hands on her belly with a quiet sigh of relief. Darius just leaned back against the wall, holding one of the bars above his head, letting the train rock him as they rolled forward. What he didn't see, what no one saw, was her slip a folded note into his backpack pocket as she got off 3 stops later. And that note? That note would change everything. It wasn't money. It wasn't a phone number. It wasn't some cliché thank you letter. It was something far deeper, far more powerful, and completely unexpected. A single act of kindness would open a door to a story Darius never imagined, and a future he never thought he'd be invited into. 2 men, 2 cities, 2 moments of quiet resistance in the face of quiet prejudice. And neither of them knew just how far this day was going to take them. What was in that note? And how will Brent respond now that the man he mocked is the one signing his checks? Stick around. This story's just getting started. The note stayed in Darius's backpack for hours. He didn't even know it was there. After the train ride, he made his way through the usual routine, slipping into his last period class at Booker T. Washington High just before the bell, nodding to his friend Terrence and zoning out halfway through his history lecture. His mind was already elsewhere. He'd been thinking about his scholarship applications, about whether he could actually get into Morehouse, and about how the rent was going up again. His mom hadn't said it out loud, but he could see the worry in her face every time she looked at a bill. He didn't think much of the woman on the train after she left. He just hoped she made it home safe. Back in the boardroom uptown, Miles had taken his seat. He wasn't rushing. Every move was deliberate. Every pause said more than words. He wasn't here to prove himself. He already belonged here. But it was clear not everyone felt that way. Brent Halley still hadn't spoken. His hands were clasped tight, knuckles pale, and he stared ahead like someone trying to find the rewind button on life. Others around the table weren't sure what to do. Some offered polite, almost embarrassed smiles. A few looked eager, probably, already calculating how to pivot their loyalty. Jordan didn't address the tension head-on. Not yet. He simply laid out the vision. But underneath the presentation, beneath the charts and marketing goals, was something deeper. This company had problems. Not just financial, cultural. Jordan knew exactly what kind of place Selmore and Kent had become. On paper, it was diverse, progressive, community-driven. But inside these walls, stories didn't always match slogans. That's why the board had brought him in, to clean house quietly and course-correct the company's identity without triggering a PR crisis. What they didn't expect was that Jordan would do it his way. Brent was still caught in his own disbelief. He'd been running this place like his personal kingdom for years, answering only to people who looked and thought like him. Jordan had been one of the candidates he didn't even bother reading about when the position came open. He remembered now, one of the resumes he'd skimmed for 30 seconds before tossing it into the not-ready pile. And now that same man was standing at the helm. Back at school, Darius slung his bag over one shoulder and made the walk home through West End, earbuds back in. His route took him past the basketball courts, the barber shop where the old heads argued over who was better, LeBron or Jordan, and finally past the corner store where he grabbed a bottle of Arizona tea and a $1 bag of chips. He didn't check the backpack until that night, lying on his bed, scrolling through scholarship deadlines again. He reached in to grab a notebook and felt the unfamiliar fold of paper between the pages. His brow creased. He unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was neat, clean cursive on thick ivory paper, like something out of a different era. You have no idea how much I needed that seat today. I'm not just pregnant. I'm alone and scared. What you did was small to you, but it reminded me there are still good people in the world. And sometimes, the smallest things matter most. I work for someone who changes lives. I've told him about you. If you get this, follow the address on the back. If you're the same person he thinks you are, this might be the start of something big. Claire Darius stared at the paper for a long time. No money, no strings. Just an address in Midtown and a name. He didn't know what to make of it. He didn't know if he should trust it. But something about the note felt real. Like a door he didn't expect to find had just cracked open. He folded it back up and slid it into his desk drawer, the one he kept his best work in. Essays, college letters, sketches of his dream sneaker design. At Selmore and Kent, the meeting was wrapping up, but the tension hadn't faded. If anything, it simmered just beneath the surface. Jordan could feel it. The way eyes lingered on him too long. The silence after he made a point. It wasn't just about race, it was about change, and change scared people. When the meeting ended, most of the room filtered out quickly. No one wanted to be the last one in the room, except Brent. He stood slowly, clearing his throat like a man trying to gather shattered pride. "Mr. Miles," he said stiffly. "Welcome aboard." Jordan looked at him. Not angry, not smug, just steady. "Thank you, Brent," he said. There was a pause. Brent hesitated, then forced a smile. "Let me know if you need help settling in." Jordan gave him a small nod. "Actually, I might need a word tomorrow. About company culture. Shouldn't take long." Brent's smile twitched. "Of course." As Brent turned to leave, Jordan's assistant stepped in. Claire, the same Claire who had been on that train. The same Claire who saw something in Darius that no one else did that morning. She handed Jordan a folder, thicker than the one before. "Background on the mentorship candidates," she said quietly. Jordan flipped it open. Right on top was a profile marked with a yellow sticky note. "Darius Brown, pending interview." Jordan's eyes lingered on the picture. 17. Senior high GPA, works part-time. Family of 3. Interested in business, design, social impact. Personal statement. "I just want to do something that matters." Jordan smiled to himself. Sometimes the right people walk into your story when you're not even looking for them. But neither of them, Jordan or Darius, knew just how tangled their stories were about to become. And neither knew who might try to stop them, because the higher you rise, the more people start hoping you fall. And in a city built on layers of quiet, power, and louder prejudice, not everyone wants to see new names rise to the top. Not everyone wants to see the game change, and some will do anything to keep it the same. The story wasn't just about a boardroom or a train seat. It was about what happens when people who've been overlooked finally step into the light, and what others will do to shut it off. The sun burned low over the Atlanta skyline the next morning, throwing golden light across the glassy buildings and busy streets below. In an office that still smelled of fresh coffee and polished steel, Jordan Miles stood by the window, looking down at the city like he was watching a storm roll in. Claire entered quietly, tablet in hand. She didn't say anything right away, just waited, respectful of the silence. "He's just a kid," Jordan said without turning. 17, not even out of high school. Claire nodded. "But he's not like the others we've seen." Jordan turned now, eyes sharp but thoughtful. "No, he's not. There was something about Darius that stuck with him. Maybe it was the quiet way he gave up that seat, no fanfare, or the honest vulnerability in his personal essay. Or maybe it was because Jordan had been that kid once, young, hungry, overlooked, wanting to matter, wanting to be seen." Claire handed him the background file again, this time with a few more details. Teacher's notes, community service, a few letters of recommendation, nothing flashy, but real. Honest. Jordan flipped the pages slowly, pausing, at a note from Darius's English teacher. "This young man has heart. Not just potential, heart. He leads by example even when no one's watching." Down in the West End, Darius had no idea he was being talked about in a skyscraper. He was pulling on his sneakers, tying the laces tight while his mom shouted, from the kitchen, something about eggs and don't forget your jacket. He grabbed his backpack, still unsure what to do with the note from Claire. Part of him thought it was just kindness, nothing more. But the address she'd written on the back, it hadn't left his head. He was thinking about it all the way to school, even while Terrence cracked jokes and slapped his arm on the bus. "You good, D?" Terrence asked, squinting at him. Darius nodded slowly. "Yeah, just thinking." Terrence grinned. "Don't hurt yourself." But Darius didn't laugh. He just stared out the window as buildings blurred past. At Selmore and Kent, the office buzzed with energy, except in Brent Halley's corner. He sat stiffly in his office, jaw clenched, fingers drumming on the desk. A new CEO meant new rules, new expectations. And the one thing Brent hated more than anything was change, especially when it came in the form of a younger, sharper, black executive who didn't ask for permission to lead. Brent clicked through emails, ignoring the ones about culture training and leadership reevaluations. But one message caught his eye. It was from another senior manager, Dennis Mahoney. Just one line. "He's going to change everything." Brent leaned back in his chair. That wasn't just an observation. It was a warning. Down the hall, Jordan was already meeting with HR, reviewing policies, looking at hiring data. Numbers didn't lie, and what he saw in the reports confirmed what he suspected. People like Brent had been running this place too long. Promotions were lopsided. Exit interviews full of coded language. The diversity charts in the company brochures looked good, until you looked at who actually made the decisions. Jordan didn't say much in the meeting, but his mind was moving. He didn't come here to play safe. He came to fix what others ignored. Later that week, Darius finally walked up to the building Claire had written on the note. He hesitated outside, shifting on his feet, staring up at the sleek tower with glass doors and spinning metal letters out front. Miles Foundation, Community Futures Division. He didn't know what he was expecting. A trap? A prank? Something that reminded him he didn't belong. But the receptionist smiled like she was waiting for him. "Mr. Brown." His heart jumped. "Yeah? Follow me. Mr. Miles asked to see you." Darius blinked, stunned. "Wait, Jordan Miles?" She nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. He followed her through wide halls lined with photos, young entrepreneurs, scholarship winners, tech incubator launches. All people who'd been given a shot when no one else looked there. At least when Jordan greeted him, it wasn't in a suit behind a desk. He was in a black sweater and jeans, sitting in a circle of chairs in a small conference room that felt more like a classroom than a boardroom. He stood up and extended a hand. "Darius, I'm glad you came." Darius hesitated, then shook it. "You're really him, huh?" Jordan smiled. "Most days." Claire stepped in behind him, giving Darius a warm look. "This place was built for people like you," Jordan said. "Smart, driven, tired of being underestimated?" Darius looked around. "What is this place?" Jordan didn't answer right away. He let the silence speak for a second. "It's a place for second chances," he said. "Or first chances. For people who never even got one." Back at Selmore and Kent, Brent wasn't done fighting. Not by a long shot. He'd started making quiet calls, whispering into the right ears, spinning a story that Jordan was an outsider, that his ideas were disruptive, that he was pushing too hard, too fast. One of the board members, an older man named Patterson, listened carefully. He owed Brent a few favors, and he didn't like being told how to run things by someone 30 years younger. "I just think we should keep an eye on him," Brent said over lunch, swirling his drink. "A lot of noise, not a lot of results yet." Patterson nodded slowly. Seeds of doubt. That's all Brent needed. He knew how to play the long game, but what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Jordan was already 10 steps ahead. He knew Brent would fight back, and he was ready. Darius left the Miles Foundation with a folder under his arm and his head spinning. Inside were details about a mentorship program, internship options, a list of names he didn't recognize, but one name at the bottom caught his eye. Selmore and Kent. He didn't say anything at first, but in his gut, he felt it. Somehow, his story and Jordan's were already crossing paths, and he had no idea how much was riding on what came next. He walked out into the cool evening air, not realizing Brent Halley had just made a phone call to a contact in the media. An anonymous tip, a hint of something off in the new CEO's background. No proof, just doubt, that's all some people needed. As darkness fell across the city, both men, one barely a man, the other holding the weight of a company, felt the ground shift under their feet. The game had started, and someone was already cheating. The rain came down hard that Friday. Thunder rolled in the distance as Darius stepped off the MARTA bus, hoodie pulled low over his head, heart pounding harder. Then the weather outside. The papers in his bag were damp around the edges, but that wasn't what had him on edge. It was the name he saw again last night, Selmore and Kent. Jordan Miles had mentioned an opportunity, an internship placement through the mentorship program. Darius thought it would be something small, maybe office errands, shadowing a junior associate, learning the ropes. He never expected it to be that place. The same company where, just days ago, a senior manager had humiliated someone in the boardroom without realizing he was talking down to his new boss. And now Darius was supposed to show up there like everything was normal. He reached the lobby of the corporate building just after 8:30 a.m., eyes scanning the names on the directory board. Selmore and Kent took up 3 floors. Everything about the place felt cold. Clean glass, white walls, polished marble underfoot. It screamed money and power, and none of it felt like home. A woman from HR met him by the elevators. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Darius Brown, you'll be shadowing Mr. Halley's department today." Darius stopped. "Halley?" She nodded. "Brent Halley, senior executive. He's volunteered to mentor incoming interns." His stomach dropped. That Halley? The one Jordan told Claire to keep an eye on? The one whose eyes didn't just see color, but seemed to resent it? Darius followed silently, walking into the storm. Brent didn't look up when he entered the office. He was on the phone, barking instructions, eyes flicking over Darius like he was a delivery guy instead of a mentee. Finally, he hung up and stood. "You're the kid from the train," Brent said flatly, walking around the desk. Darius blinked. "Sir?" Brent smirked faintly. "You gave your seat to that pregnant woman. Claire, she works here." The way he said "that woman," it sounded more like a mark than a compliment. "Yeah," Darius said slowly. "I didn't know she worked here." "Well, she does," Brent said. "And she pulled strings for you, that's why you're here, so don't waste it." He gestured toward a small table cluttered with folders. "Start organizing those by department. We'll see how you handle basic tasks before we waste time on the advanced stuff." Darius nodded slowly, jaw tight. He didn't say a word. But inside, something started turning. Upstairs, Jordan sat across from 2 members of the board. They weren't smiling. "We've had some concerns raised," Patterson said, leaning forward with steepled fingers. "There's chatter about mismanagement, favoritism, even some background discrepancies in your hiring paperwork." Jordan didn't flinch. He knew what this was. Brent had made his move. "I've complied with every audit," Jordan said calmly. "If there are real issues, show me." Patterson exchanged a look with the woman beside him, a younger board member named Alvarez. She didn't speak, just studied Jordan, trying to read the truth behind his words. "We're not accusing you," Patterson said. "We're simply requesting a temporary reduction of authority until the review is complete." "You mean a suspension?" Jordan replied, voice even. Patterson didn't deny it. Jordan stood. "I'll cooperate with any investigation," he said. "But let me be clear. If this is about Brent Halley or anyone like him trying to undermine change, I will take it public." Patterson raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like a threat." Jordan held his gaze. "It's a promise." Back on the lower floor, Brent watched Darius work without offering help or feedback. Every few minutes, he'd find a reason to criticize, too slow, too messy, not professional. Darius stayed quiet, focused, but inside a storm was building. By noon, Brent was pacing behind him on a call. He spoke louder than necessary, mentioning ungrateful interns and people-handed opportunities they didn't earn. He wanted Darius to hear, and Darius did. That afternoon, Claire walked into the break room and found Darius alone, hands clenched around a paper cup. "You okay?" she asked. He shook his head. "I don't think I belong here." Claire looked at him carefully. "That's exactly why you do." Darius looked up, confused. She sat beside him. "This place was built to keep people like you out. Jordan's trying to change that, but change makes people angry. People like Brent." Darius leaned back. "Then why send me here?" "Because someone has to take up space in these rooms," she said quietly. "Someone has to make it uncomfortable." Back upstairs, Jordan received an anonymous email. Attached was an internal memo. Brent had been routing funding, mentorship, funds, into a private consulting firm owned by a friend. Jordan's eyes narrowed. It was enough, but not yet safe to act. He needed proof, real, undeniable proof. At the same time, Down in Brent's department, Darius found something. While organizing folders, one had fallen, its contents slipping across the floor. He started picking it up, but paused when he saw the name. Miles Foundation Mentorship Ledger. Inside were invoices, company payments to an outside vendor. But the services didn't match any real program. Darius tucked the papers back together, heart racing. He didn't know exactly what it was, but he knew enough. He knew Jordan had to see this. Only problem? Brent had just walked in and seen the folder in Darius's hands. "What exactly are you doing with that?" Brent asked, tone colder than before. Darius stood still. The air in the room tightened. "I was just cleaning on to put it down." Brent stepped closer. "Too close. You don't touch anything without permission in my department. You got that?" Darius didn't flinch, but his eyes were sharp now. "I think this belongs to someone else," he said quietly. Brent's smile didn't reach his eyes, and for the first time all day, he looked dangerous. Darius backed out slowly, clutching the folder behind him, heart pounding. The elevator doors closed just before Brent reached them. Claire was waiting by the lobby. She saw his face. "What happened?" "Where's Jordan?" Darius asked, breath short. "We need to talk now." Because something was unraveling, and the truth was about to explode, and not everyone would make it out clean.